Hola community, welcome to Blender Today Live. This gathering we do every other week where we see what's new in Blender. And what's new in Blender since last time we met is Blender 5. It's finally here. It's been here for a while. It's the beta extended into the release candidate, then it's finally out. Will there be a 5.0.1? Yes, I can already definitely tell you that there will be, because there are some, I mean, because it's a big release, there are many issues, but yes, there is it. Camera focus. Oh no, is it out of focus? Is it worth if I just go here and yes, let's do everything there. Focus, automatic focus. Does Blender have automatic focus? No, not really. There is an add-on, I think, that is for automatic focus. Oh no, I need to be exactly here. 5.1 though is well underway. That release is coming in March. There is some, today I was talking with some people from the studio, there is some training that would happen before 5.1 comes out, which is related to a topic that we don't often see: rigging. Actually, advanced facial rigging. And that brings me to the topic of today. If you go to blender.org, you see that, hey, amazing, Blender 5 is here, after you go past the wall of text, which, yeah, is very Wikipedia-like. It's a, the thing is, this kind of messages, we're just trying things. Like, we had some feedback. It's very strong. You can say already donated or remind me later. I'm going to tell you again in some other time. But these kind of messages sometimes work, and we're just trying things. We remember a couple years ago we tried with the birthday, the Blender birthday. Every year is the Blender birthday, right? And that time it worked more or less. Then we tried the 2%, didn't work, so we're trying with this, with the $5, 5 for Blender 5. So yeah, if you see it everywhere, just dismiss it for the time being. Anyway, once you see that Blender 5 is here, and after you look at the beautiful release notes and you notice that some things have more emphasis than others, there are some parts, I think there is this video that doesn't play in some browsers. So if you haven't seen it, here now you see it. Then there are a few things that are missing here. There is the splash screen, which is not there yet, but I will add it maybe tomorrow. I already got the file, so I just need to check that everything is okay. I'm going to put it up. That will be in the demo files section. And other than that, I think there is a few things I would like to add here, like more regarding volumes that we didn't get. I think there is a demo file that we plan to add soon in the this one I didn't get to actually show. This one, SDF modeling, basically. This file is very slow. You need to open it and then disable most things, but it's amazing. Then there is the Gaussian splatting file here. There is a bunch of things that I didn't get the time to actually add to the page of 5.0, but you can already try them out. So I would actually share these with you so you go have fun with demo files. What else? You know what else you can have fun with? Okay, because Blender 5 is like the greatest thing, right? It's like the new thing, the new toy. But Blender 4.5 is just as good. And the to celebrate this just as good thing and the fact that it has 2 years worth of updates, so until 2027, the Blender Studio released the Blender fundamentals for 4.5. Yes, it is outdated, but it's not really outdated. Blender 5, you can learn Blender 5 with Blender 4.5 fundamentals. This is free access to everyone. So share it with your friends. It's ongoing, it will get updated. But please share it with everyone who wants to learn Blender for beginners in a different way. This is not a video, a 5-hour video of how to make something. This is written text, like with actual chapters, and you basically do the same concept of the fundamentals. So you learn Blender from scratch, but in text. So it's easier to translate to search in a page, to go step by step. And this is super nice, actually. It's very, very nice. So it's good to see that this is happening, and this is thanks to the Blender Studio people downstairs, which they release all this training, entire training, for free. You know what they release that is almost free? It's the there is a new blog post which is free access. So the blog post is free, and inside there's the explanation on the Storm rig. It's a complete new character, fully rigged, and this is related to the advanced facial rigging course that I mentioned that will come to the Blender Studio website next year before 5.1. But this one, it's awesome. I'm going to share this with you because even if you don't have a paid subscription to the Blender Studio, you can still read the content. You can see the description, the definition. You can access these awesome images. You can read the whole thing, just the pipeline. What you need a paid subscription for is to actually download the actual file. And the actual file, I have it here because I happen to have a subscription and to the Blender Studio. So I can access things like this. And not only that, but also the poses. So this is awesome. A fully oh, nice, fully rigged character, and even the poses. The pose library is actually, I forget that we have this thing, which is so nice to see the detail. The post library, the new post library. Anyway, this character is available under a subscription, so basically 11 euros if you want to have it. That's it. But it's open content. It's Creative Commons. So if you have a friend that has a subscription, they can share it with you and it will all be fine. You can sleep well at night. Everything Blender makes is shareable. You know, what else? What I wanted to mention? I think this is all. In the release notes of Blender 5, there was another video, since we were talking about the studio, is the storyboarding workflow. It's a video, it's a 2-minute video, I don't know if you've seen it, by Pablico from Blender Studio, where he explains in very basic steps on how to use the new storyboarding tools. But if you watch this tutorial, these live streams, you probably know and already know how to use this. Look at that, the Blender Guru released the Donut 5.0. Wow. Has anybody done it already? Because nothing has really changed in 5.0, since 4.0 in regards of making a donut. Even the UI hasn't changed that much since 4.0. So I wonder what's new in there. And this one by Kaizen, I did watch this, so thank you, Kaizen, because it's super down and to the point. And then at the end, he mentions the donation on the Blender channel, which is awesome. And speaking of which, the last time we talked, this was 1,000 users less. So thanks everyone for contributing to the Blender Development Fund. This is insane. 1,000 users more in the Blender Development Fund, which is crazy to see. And I would like to show here a percentage, because it's hard to calculate because not everybody donates the same amount, so it needs some inner works. But I would like to make visible what is the percentage that users pay, like contribute to Blender, compared to companies, because ideally that would be in the same level, and ideally even better would be if more individual users would take over more of the corporate, because if one corporate falls, then yeah, things get serious. Also, it's much better if it's spread out. That being said, let's see what's new in Blender today. Spoiler alert, there is really not that much. There is some performance changes, some improvements in some quality of life tweaks, but there's nothing groundbreaking. Most of the development, this last week, has been towards Blender 5.0 and making it stable, super stable. So let's see what's new in Blender today. Let's start with A for animation, and all of the changes in animation, I think they are related to performance, which is amazing. Please keep on coming, more performance. Look at this one. Improve playback performance by, in a small test, about 40%, and 40% faster to calculate in an evaluation and apply action. But in an actual file, like in an actual production file, this animation was 13% faster, more FPS, more frames per second, which is awesome, from 88 to 100 frames per second. And this is part of the, I think I mentioned this a few times, that there's a big effort in the animation module to improve the performance, right? No matter how good your tools are, if it's not fast and performant at the speed that you want it, or even compared to how it used to be in the past, then it doesn't help. So 5.1, that's the goal for this performance improvement. That's nice. And I think all the other are also related. This one is a smaller change, but still, when using many bones, they should be faster. Then this case also a bit faster. I think this is part of a table. Very minimal change, but you know, all this they pull up. I'm gonna close this and keep this tab open, because this is where I actually have my login. Sometimes you need to be logged in to see some pages in projects.blender.org. That's mainly because of spam, and that you prevent bots or AI to scrub your website and make it slow for everyone. Wow, this one is pretty big. It went from 2 milliseconds to 0.4 milliseconds. Not bad. Again, this is evaluating drivers, shape keys. So it's a file with a lots of drivers on a lot of shape keys. So big files. And that's it. It's part of the these efforts of having better performance files on the animation system. Let's continue with A for assets. And all right, Blender 5.0 has been out for a week, but this change made it in. It's a removal. So the film grain asset was added a long time ago, and then it was mentioned everywhere. Even I mentioned it in the release notes that I just showed you. I had to remove that because last minute, many users were reporting that this effect wasn't behaving as it should, and that's enough of a reason to not ship something broken. So it was removed last minute. Very bad, because many people already made videos on counting on this film grain effect, but it will come back, just not yet. And some tooltips or descriptions of assets have been improved. Let's continue with A for Autospace. Autospace is the library that Blender uses to play sounds, to distort sounds, to anything related to sound. And this update has a bunch of fixes, and it has a new, I think it's a new effect called Time Stretch Pitch Scale, which the fact that it's in the library doesn't mean that it's in Blender, but Blender has access to it. Although it needs the interface for it, it needs the controllers for it, the library has it, Blender doesn't yet. So the fact that the library has it is the first step to Blender having it. So recently Blender got the pitch modifier in the sequencer, thanks to the pitch shifter effect. And now there is a pitch scale effect. So it means the Blender could get potentially a new pitch modifier, pitch scale modifier, and I guess the other one will be pitch shifter. Or you just get the same in both and you have a mode for it. What do you usually do more often? Pitch shift, pitch scale. And what else? There is a few fixes related to time stretching. and also some pulse audio, core audio, and a bunch of fixes actually. So if you had issues with playing sound in Blender recently, these might fix it. All right, let's move on. Blender BLI, CMake, bunch of cleanups. This always happens right after a release. Blender code gets squeaky clean. Let's switch to the C4 compositor. There are a number of changes, but they're all related to about the same thing, which is making Blender aware, making the viewport compositor in Blender aware of the dimensions of your window to properly show a composite. It's easier if I just show you. It's basically a fix that allows for more flexibility. So this is how it used to look. I don't think I even need to zoom in that much because the effect is very obvious. So notice how when zooming in and out, the sphere goes all over the place, and this is with the new fix. So basically the proportions or the dimensions that the effects will use are what you would expect the camera view in the viewport renderer. There's a number of changes similar to this. The scale node, for example, also depended on what you would see on in the viewport, meaning it would be very bad. Let's see, this one is in full screen. This is the bad one. You see, there is when you move away from the view, then the render will get tiny. That's not what you would expect. And what you want is what you have now. So you move away. Doesn't seem to be perfect though. It's better, but it still is cutting in there. It's better though. And like this, there is a number of changes related to this. The relative to pixel, the box masks also now follow this, and context IO operations also follow the display window. And there is another change related to that for, I think it's EXR renders that now follow what you would have in the display window from the file. EXR saves these dimensions as well. Let's see. C4 core. This is maybe more niche. I don't know how many of you use library overrides. This is very production specific change. The team downstairs, the Blender Studio, often runs into these weird issues that, libraries, when you link a thing and maybe you move the file and you have to resync the library overrides, you need to get all the files and the dependencies. It's always a mess. So much so that apparently there was a case where the library override was fine, but at some point it broke, like even after having saved the file. And so this adds some more, makes it more robust. So basically, after resyncing the whole file, then there is an extra resyncing that is performed manually, so just to make sure that things are correct. And the other change also does something similar, but this is more sanity checks and related to the packed data. And this one was really bad. This is not for overrides, but this is packed data. And this one apparently was really bad. There is 3 bug reports at least that report this crashes. They're high severity. They are related to this, but it's really bad. So it's part of the work to try to understand and fix packed data corruption issues. If you had any issues with that, this might be related. Let's see. Okay, for cycle there's not much, just a mention of the driver required on Linux for AMD graphics cards to work. So the ROCm, which stands for Radeon Open Compute, I think. It's like the CUDA of AMD. the version now specified is 6.0, so you need to, Blender will now tell you that you need that. Apparently many users seems to install the this installer, so it's good to mention which version. What else? In E4 Eevee, there is some work done in performance. I think maybe today the episode could have been called performance or the performant live stream, because this is a small step of many steps to make Eevee and in general Blender more responsive, more faster basically. In this case, this PR is related to pre-compiling world material pipelines, and this in the future with some more changes, this will be used so Blender can run all this compilation of world and stuff shaders in the background without stopping you from working. And this is awesome. The more Blender computes things behind the scenes without actually freezing, the better. And in Eevee, apparently you could override, speaking of overrides, apparently you could override some light data, but not some light properties. And this is just an oversight, because if you look at the code, it's just all it took was going to that property and then mention, hey, this can be overridden. So in case in the future, if you can override a data block, but some properties inside not, try reporting it as a bug, because it might be just an oversight. In this case, this change makes it so you can override color, power, and other settings like temperature, use temperature, the temperature itself, the color, diffuse factor, basically every property, or almost every property, because there is another change that makes a few more light properties overridable. For shadow, use square, spread, cascade, buffer, clip start, basically everything else. Nice. What does it mean overridable? It's when you link a object, a data block, and then you can apply changes or override specific properties without losing that reference. So say you link an entire character, you can just keep the whole character referenced, but change one bone, one pose. In this case, a light. So you can link the entire light setup and change the color of just the one light. This is awesome. All right, F for FBX. There is one entry only for exporting, but it seems when I first read this one was like, wasn't this possible before? Because then the title is Export Shape Key Normals. I'm like, don't we already? Kind of sounds like a basic thing, right? And no, apparently the way that it was exporting the normal delta from the shape keys in FBX wasn't very compatible with some engines, some game engines. And now it's properly exporting it. So its shape key normals export is enabled when exporting the base mesh normals. The previous behavior was to export all zeros as the delta, which causes incorrect normals in some game engines. So nice, thank you. In Godot, apparently, this is how it used to be. This is, oh, it was really bad. Wow. Interesting. Unity also? Okay, it was really broken, apparently. Good to see. Nice. All right. Cool. What else? Let's move on. There is a bunch of fixes. Keeps happening. And there is a bunch of GPU changes, all internal changes, rewriting, until we reach the geometry section and geometry nodes. But the first one is just geometry. This is a change, an internal change that happens when converting from point clouds to mesh, between point clouds and mesh. Apparently, because when you convert from one object type to another, Blender would lose the selection that you had, just because internally the attributes had a different name. And now this was made, so it actually preserves the selection. And this is a bug fix, apparently. Yeah. So basically now Blender will preserve the selection when you convert between point clouds and mesh. The other changes are related to geometry nodes, and there are two quality of life improvements. One is the index switch node default used to be geometry, which is a data type that is incompatible with fields, which means that by default, if you drag any field socket and then start searching for this index switch, by default, it will just give you an error because the socket types one was going from a regular one to, or from fields to geometry, which is not fields, so it would complain by default. And you don't want Blender complaining by default. You have a red wire or a pop-up, or you don't want that. So now, thanks to Brady, this by default it will use the first one in the list, which is float. So by default, index switch goes to float. And another quality of life improvement is that the topology nodes, such as curve topology of a curve, or corners of edge, and so on. So all the topology nodes had a soft limit of 0. What is a soft limit? A soft limit is the UI limit. So when you drag a slider and it goes from 0 to 1, but then you press enter and then start typing and you can type 50, well, that is because the soft limit, the UI limit, is set to that value, 0 to 1, just to prevent misuse or to prevent you from putting crazy values. But still, internally, the property could support bigger values. And that is the hard limit, the actual limit. So this change removes the soft limit of 0 because actually you could input negative values in these nodes and it would be just fine. So this change adds some information to the tooltip and removes the soft limit or UI limit of 0. Super nice. So thank you, Brady. Let's move to G for Grease Pencil. Two changes. One, it's very straightforward. It's a setting that used to be there, but it wasn't very clear. So Grease Pencil objects have a very particular use. So in Blender, you have a mesh, right? And by default, the mesh color, the wireframes, are black. Thing is, with Grease Pencil, by default, Blender was using that black color because a wireframe color for the strokes. But often, when you're drawing in 2D, the stroke itself is already black, right? What you draw is black. So you have the wireframe color black and the stroke color black would make it really hard to see. So because of that, there is a new theme setting where you can customize the color of the wireframe, or the curve in this case, of Grease Pencil objects. So you can make it so your cube, your mesh, has black by default, and your Grease Pencil objects gray or white or something that you can actually see. That's it. That's all it is. It's just a new theme setting for Grease Pencil. I like it that we are actually, because now the themes are much cleaner, much more light, there's less settings, that we don't feel bad about adding new theme settings. In fact, I want to add new theme settings soon for widgets. There are some widgets that don't have theme settings and I want to add them back. Not add them back, add them, period. Okay, next. The next change is also in Grease Pencil. It's a rewrite of the trim tool segment. And this is easier seeing it in the description by Casey. So this PR rewrites the trim tool algorithm. The proposed algorithm works by breaking the curves into segments, determining which segments should be removed and then combine the remaining back into the curve. So this PR makes a few changes, but actually opens up the door for many big changes. So what this does is the segments trimmed without the control point selected lines with only 2 points. So if you don't have the control point selected, it will only trim that area, the ones with only 2 points. Hidden materials are not going to be cut, so you're not cutting things you don't see. Not great. Improves the handling of line intersections, and it has tests, which is always great. Internal tests for Blender. But it opens the possibility for bigger changes, better performance, joining of corners automatically, and trimming of Bezier and other curve types. So not limiting it to just polylines. Nice. And basically this allows this. All right. So if you can't see this in because of the live stream, is that this basically, if you remove here, it will treat this as an intersection and add points here. So nice. Next, for images. Actually, this is what I mentioned before when we were talking about the compositors display window, that now it takes into account the actual viewport or camera viewport dimensions in order to apply the effects. And this apparently was also wrong. this bug, let's look at the bug report, because a bug report from 2 years ago, 2023, someone from a studio apparently was using Blender 3.6 and found out that because of this bug, using a Cryptomat with the RenderMan add-on wouldn't work in Blender, because it was basically taking the wrong dimensions for the viewport. That's super nice. So this now works. Nice. When you read the EXRs, Blender Compositor will read it properly. What else? It's good to see this, because I don't know if this user is using Blender at the moment, the studio, but seeing a 2-year-old bug being fixed is always good. Although they're using AMD graphics card on Mac OS, which means they're using an Intel Mac, which means they're not going to be able to run 5.0 unless they build it themselves. So I hope they have either switched to Apple Silicon or install Linux, even better, or they need to compile Blender, unfortunately. And this fix actually would be in 5.1, not even 5.0.1. Okay, next. Let's see, M for mesh and modeling. One change, small change, the din topo. You know, when you enable dynamic topology, din topo, it opens this dialog that just tells you, just yells at you that this, watch out, you have UV maps or vertex colors or other kind of data or mask data in your mesh. Now Blender would actually loop through the attributes instead of just having a hard-coded set of attributes, internal attributes. Blender would just loop through them and tell you exactly which attributes are gonna be removed with dynamic topology or not supported. So super nice. And now it mentions attributes instead of a specific type, hard-coded type. And in modeling, there is a very small change, but it's a quality of life improvement, because it's regarding the shear offset or the shear tool, that by default it had a setting called offset. So if the shear tool would have this setting down here that's called offset, which is a bit not intuitive, right? Because what is the offset of a shear? And it's clear, but it's much easier to see if it was called angle, and that's what it's called now. So the shear tool it didn't get a new property per se. I think it's just probably the label and the subtype of the property, which is called angle. Yeah, shear angle, and is a float, and that's it. Let's see. What else? And for notes, another very small change, quality of life improvement also, but very small. By W Cloud is the, I don't know if you've ever noticed, but when you drag or when you add a new node, it also offsets this nodes if there is not enough room. The thing is that this adds an undo step. So when you press Control Z, and sometimes that undo step didn't make sense because it wasn't actually moving the node. So you would undo nothing really. And now it would actually check, hey, am I actually moving those nodes? Am I making room for these nodes? Then I will undo. So small thing, it saves you one undo step when it doesn't make, when it's not needed. I told you that today's changes were tiny quality of life improvements or performance, which is always welcome. It's a bunch of refactors, render doc, sculpt mode. This one is nice. This one's in sculpt. It's easier just to see the video because it's very obvious what's going on. You know that when you're sculpting, you can mask out the boundaries of your mesh. So the bounding edges. Apparently it wasn't working really well in some cases, and now it does. So here, let's see. This is how it does it at the moment, or before the fix. As you can see, when you're making this smaller, like I think it's pinching, no, or similar. If you have the boundary masking option set, you would expect the outer parts to not be affected, right? And that's what it does now. So I don't know if you get to see, but there is like a bump in the middle when at the beginning of the video, this bump. And if we look, it's just one stripe, it works. It only affects the inside of the mesh, but not the outer part. And this is awesome. Little quality of life improvement and a bug fix. Actually, there were 2 bug reports from September, both on the same day, or is the same? Anyway, the 2 bug reports closed. Yay! I don't know how are we doing in bug report wise? As in, let's see, we have bugs. Yes, so we can see the list of bugs and high severity. How many high severity do we have at the moment? 27. Open high severity bugs. That's big. Well, there's one that I mentioned before related to packed blend files. Maybe that one is going to close a bunch of things. That's a pretty big number. Just so you know, I think when Blender 5 came out, there were less than 10. I think at some point I even saw 9. Maybe in those days it went a bit higher, but it was definitely not 27 like it is now. So developers really make sure that on release there is a small number of high priority bugs in order to release Blender. Otherwise it wouldn't be released. It would just postpone another week, and then once things start to settle again, then release. So this number it's big, but still manageable. As long as there is no urgent, really obvious crash, then everything goes according to plan, and the plan is to release Blender 5.0.1 together with the next LTS releases, which is supposed to come mid-December. I think it's the 16th or so. It has to be around that week. It's usually the second Tuesday is they migrate all the changes, and the third Tuesday of every month is when the actual release happens. So that would be December. Indeed, December, not 16th, sorry, the 13, 14, is around those days when, yeah, 13, it's on a Tuesday. Just in case you are wondering, I don't know, do people know that Blender has monthly scheduled releases? It's very predictable. Okay, let's move on. There's not that much more. Let's talk about you and I. User interface has a bunch of small changes. This one, have you ever noticed, or did you know that you can snap the resize of areas? So in Blender, say you want to open, you have this, for example, and then you hold Control, and it will snap to some specific sizes, which is great. It's awesome. And the issue is that, let's see. So the issue is that now here, for example, I have only this area and this area. This resizing used to be relative to these editors, to the editor itself. So every time you resize, it would be different. So if I have two windows, for example, now because this and this other are smaller, then the resize wouldn't be consistent. It was so annoying because it wasn't predictable. It would depend on other editors around it. Not anymore. Now it is predictable, so you can snap, hold control to snap it always to a specific height. And it's not there yet, but there are more improvements coming to the snapping of this to be smarter and snap to the height of the header and the height of the scrub area. And even more, spoiler alert, this is coming soon. It will also snap to the playback controls, so you can have to snap it to have exactly this, or if you remove the header, this already does it, that you can snap to only the playback controls. Small quality of life improvements. Let's see. Anyway, so yeah, the area snapping is now absolute for the window, not relative to the window, to the editor size anymore. Next, again, small details. This is a placeholder for the search box. This is something I mentioned in the live stream last time, and Pratik saw the live stream and added the placeholder. Super nice. Thanks for the attention to detail. And this was done on the tree view, so on the shape keys, but it wasn't actually in the shape keys. In the UI list, the regular UI lists, and now it is. So vertex groups, UV maps, all the old system UI list now has the same unified look, the icon to search and the actual code text to search. I never noticed actually that this was just a black blob without any indication that you can search here. Small thing. Then small thing, there is a new icon for something that is not even in Blender yet, but today we had a meeting on that on top of all the other meetings, but it's a design session we had today on this new feature that is coming to Blender. At some point, it's being worked on. It's a branch at the moment. It's not yet in main, or it's not even experimental yet, but it will be pretty big in terms of organization of your projects, because it's actually introducing projects to Blender, the concept of a project. So right now you open Blender and the default cube is just as in a project as any other file that you have. You open your feature film that you're working on, and you open a character, and they don't know about where are they unless you make an add-on. But studios usually make add-ons for this, and including the studio here and Blender, the Blender Studio, they make an add-on to define a project. So what is a project? A project is like a organization inside where your blend files live that define specific variables or asset libraries, right? You're working on a movie, and the asset libraries you want there are probably different than the ones that you want in another movie you're working on, or a local project, a hobby project for you. So this will add an extra layer of organization to your setups. The add-ons that you use for a project are different from another project, right? And with this concept, it's still under design stage, but it will be super nice. So nice. And it's being worked on actively. So it needed an icon, and now there is an icon for something that is not even in Blender yet, but it's called project. And it looks like a post-it. So it looks something like this, basically. So it's a project manager, and it's like a whiteboard with squares in it, post-its in it. Let's see. that is no, hey, this one's fun. So how many of you are really paying attention to how slow your scene is? If you are, especially if you're a TD, if you care about how many modifiers you add, how slow it is to calculate things, well, Blender will now tell you with a new overlay setting that it's in the viewport that is called performance. And by default, you're probably not gonna see much in the default cube. You go to overlays. This has been restructured a bit. This option, the general text info, used to be up here. Now it's down here. Same thing where you have stats. Now there is this one, performance. And by default, okay, it tells you like when you move around, this is how long it takes for Blender to draw the window, to synchronize. Well, this is the evaluation first, which is the depth graph, the dependency graph. And you can actually learn about this in the tooltip. So if you leave the mouse over, you will see evaluation, time to evaluate the dependency graph. So the modifiers, the action, the keyframe, everything. And then the time it takes to send it to the GPU to actually calculate and see what you see here. That's why it gets updated as you move around. And the other one only gets updated when you change frame. So if we open Storm, you probably would see a few a bit higher values, I assume. Yeah, the evaluation is 17 milliseconds, and then it's very fast to draw. I press play, then I see that I get a bit slower. But of course, when you have a scene that is way more heavy, so let's say I go to have some files. Do I have any demo files here? I do, if I sort them. The splash is very slow. Shall we open the splash? Let's see. From 2021, 3.0. Wow. Here's a splash of 3.0. I always use it as a reference. And in this one, this is probably very slow to calculate. If I even get to here, enable the overlays. And you may have noticed that I always allow execution, and I press that always manually because I download things from the internet and that is slow sometimes. So now it's fine. If I press play, then it gets slow, and you can see that all the numbers are doesn't like this. This is the frames per second, evaluation, and the rest. And now the last time the depth graph was evaluated, yes, it took a while, but actually if I select something else, then it doesn't have to evaluate all the modifiers. But yeah, this is great because you can actually see which modifiers are the slow ones, right? You can just disable some of them. Actually, this one not evaluated, and this will tell you, oof, okay, shouldn't have done that. But hey, now you can blame what's making things slow. All right, next. There is USD. Process point clouds and add point instancer ID values. These IDs are required for correct in-camera motion blur. So read and write them as appropriate for both point clouds and point instancers. Nice. The incoming USD IDs are 64-bit, but Blender only supports 32-bit ID. Okay, that's not nice. So the values will be narrowed and can potentially produce different or duplicate IDs depending on how far the value is outside of the range. So 32-bit range. But hey, nice. Motion blur in point cloud and point instances, USD. Let's see. Allow create this VSE. Oh, nice. Quality of life improvement. I think I mentioned this in the last live stream too. Yes. So when adding a new, let's go to the video sequencer editor. And if I add a whatever, and I add a compositor, I can now from the compositor itself create new, or actually even just without making the modifier, adding a modifier, I can create new and it will make it for me. Nice. Quality of life. I can feel my life already with more quality. Cool. Nice. Thank you, Ramon, no? This was, yeah, Ramon Clark. Thank you. And the last one is a bug fix / new feature. There is a bug report that mentions that it's impossible to add image sequences with many PNGs to the video sequence editor. And that is because there is a new behavior that is consistent with the image editor, but it removes functionality that existed in the VSE before. So if we look at the image, this is what you will now get if you import an image. You can auto-detect the sequence for you. You can import it as an image sequence or individual images. By default, it will auto-detect, so you know. If the sequence of numbers in the images name make sense for a sequence, then Blender would auto-detect it and treat it as such. Otherwise, you can import it as individual images. Nice. Let's see. What else? This one was by John. Thank you, John. And that's it. Actually, there is a bunch of changes in Vulkan. And this is always a welcome addition. Actually, now you can build Vulkan on macOS, but it doesn't, you can build it. It doesn't mean that it will use Vulkan on macOS, but at least you can build it. It's the first step. And this other one, graphic pipeline libraries, which will separate compiling the more reusable parts of graphics pipeline, which means improves caching and reduce the needed compilation time for Vulkan. The benefits in performance at this moment are not visible, but it lays the foundations for more improvements, building, caching, compiling. So what it means, it translates to faster, more responsive Blender when using Vulkan, which is always a good thing. So awesome. That's it. That's all there is in Blender as of today. And I didn't make a thread this week, so let's see if there is any question open here. Somebody made a thread. Yes, nice. So I will edit this and also add all the changes. Thank you. So there you go. So you can actually see later after the live stream, see what has changed. Thank you, Nanabat, for making this thread. I'll try to make this work. Last time it didn't work, so let's hope it works. What is it? Something broke. That's the issue with websites. If you don't maintain them, sometimes they just like to stop working. Not like a software that you just install it, and as long as you don't update the system, it just keeps working. Anyway, let's see what the questions are for this week. Let me have a mate. I didn't have a single mate today. It's well, today I did from the morning, but not here. Let's start from the bottom because the first ones are in the bottom. Martiner, without even saying hi. Hi Martiner, how are you? Do you had a good weekend? Are you enjoying Blender 5? Are you still in 4.5 or older? The question is, when you are in orthographic side view, the grid is automatically subdivided when you zoom the viewport. This can be turned off by setting subdivision to 1, but only if your unit system is none. If you're using metric or imperial units, there is no option to control the subdivision. It is possible to turn off automatic grid subdivision by zooming. So this is a feature request, or, well, I don't think it's possible to turn off automatic grid subdivision. It's just the way it is. But the subdivisions, manual subdivision, I don't know if there is a limitation. It doesn't look like there is a limitation. But if this is a feature request, then maybe make a right-click select post. It's easier to see, maybe make a mockup. Nuno Alex says, thank you, Nuno, for all the support. Blender Studio, Blender Gold development supporter, and a bunch of others. Hello, Pablo, and thank you for one more Blender Today live. My question today is regarding AI or machine learning training solutions in Blender. We have started to see very interesting and useful solutions for Houdini and Maya using machine learning to train operations like abrasing, smoke simulations, rig skin deformations, amongst other interesting tools to help speed up and improve workflows. Is Blender development working or considering developing such machine learning training tools to allow users or studios to train their own models to improve workflow? Yes and no. Yes, it's in the blender.org/lab roadmap. The MCP server, the AI in general in Blender, it's part of something that eventually, not generative AI to make crappy AI slop content or stealing other artists' work, but actual AI that can improve, for example, make my smoke simulation look better because I render it at a slow resolution, make it high resolution, or this kind of AI usage. We are in favor also, as in Blender in general. It's something we would like to look into, but it is very up in the air. Like we don't even have anyone in the team so far that can or even likes to do these things. They're busy with other regular module work. So if you know anyone, send them the Blender way, but this requires both funding, so someone to actually, or stakeholders, and stakeholders. So someone that actually say, hey, I need it for this project and I'm gonna follow this project and make sure that it happens. Martiner, oh, sorry. Now is this thing. I said you didn't say hi, but yes, you did say hi. Sorry, my bad. Freeway 80 says, Hola Pablo, is there anything in the works for sculpting? Stuff like morph target, shape key, brush, and sculpt layer, something that I was considered to add. Yes, sculpt layers are part of something that Blender developers in the sculpt module want to add. Was one of the targets for after the multi-resolution issues are solved, because there's some issues that Blender has with the multi-resolution, that no matter how many layers you can add in the sculpting, if the base layer or the subdivision of your mesh is not good enough, then it wasn't as good to have it without the other. So they focus first on the multi-resolution, which some of the issues have been fixed, and that should be one of the topics for the upcoming year, I would say. I don't know if they have already, they have already posted about the sculpt improvements, as in roadmap. So if I do sculpt roadmap, module roadmap 2025. Okay, 8 months ago. Okay, well, first item in the list, sculpting layers. See, they are thinking about it. They have it in the roadmap for 2025, and we still have a whole month ahead, but also 2026. Next. Aditya6 says, hey, love Blender so much and was wondering when we'll be getting deep EXR support, as this has been a feature requested for almost 3 to 5 years. No, that feature has been requested for way longer than that. For as long as the compositor exists almost, and deep compositing became mainstream. From the community, and this would allow major studios to start implementing in their pipeline and will make Blender an industry standard. I don't think it will make Blender an industry standard, but it will help a lot to for the adoption of this. Major studios like ILM and DNEG want Blender to have deep EXRs. Really? Do they really want to? Do you have actual proof? I know some of them want it, but if they really want to, they would, try and convince their TDs to help joining somehow this list and make it happen. But I know it's a chicken and egg issue, right? It's like, okay, we don't use Blender because it doesn't have this, but we don't have this, we can't pay for it ahead in advance. But yeah, the compositing is, people have been requesting this for the longest time. Hey Pablo, really nice to catch one of these live streams. Do you know why we don't have font input in the strings to curved geometry? Not having it means users have to dig in the node tree just to change the font. Well, I don't, just because no one implemented it really. I think there is, what kind of socket input is that even? Like, what is, because image sockets you can send across, collections you can, objects you can, font input, yeah, it was never implemented. But which socket color? That's the hardest, that's the most difficult part of this kind of request, is to think of a socket color for something so specific as a font input. Hi Pablo, I hope you're doing well. Could you have UI UX people take a look at the multiple image texture node? It doesn't really have any input, so you can't control the frame offset value without drivers, which makes flipbook animation unnecessarily hard, and it autoplays the frames. And if you change the amount of frames, till you set up, keep it 1 frame for hand-drawn animations and blinking and so on. It's undone. I see. That's not really UI UX people. I wish it was, because then we could just say, yes, we need that. It's really implementation. It has to do with the modules itself. In this case, I guess you're thinking about the shading module, the rendering module, because the texture node, the image texture node has the whole thing needs to be redone. The number of times that you have to update the frame count when you have an image sequence, if you change the image sequence, is not great. But it's in the roadmap. It's one of those things that has been improved in some node editors, but not everywhere across the board. But it is in the radar. Ritam says, hi Pablo, I'm currently working on a project and Blender just crashed. Sad face. I was using Blender 5.0. Now when trying to open the file from Windows Explorer, Blender just keeps crashing. If I open Blender and then load the file, it's just fine, but crashes again when going to render view. Any idea what's going on? That is very interesting. So when you double click from the Windows Explorer, Blender keeps crashing, but if you open Blender and then load it, it's fine, but then it crashes on render view. That's weird, because it doesn't have any difference really on, maybe it runs out of memory and it's just faster when you open it. If you manage to get this to reproduce the issue on a simple blend file, please report it, because these are very valuable tests. Maybe it has to do with the same issue that I mentioned before, the packed blend data. Please, if you make it crash again, please, in a simple blend file especially, go to help, report the bug. This will open the browser and it will include some information. It's not personal, very personal at least. It's just the operating system, the graphics card that you have, and the version of Blender that you're using. So it's valuable information for developers, but nothing else gets reported. Now please do. Next. Good evening, ladies and gents. I would like to ask whether it's just me or moving the video sequencer modifiers to the properties area was the stupidest idea in history. Doesn't it imply people use sequencer 24/7, which is simply not true? I mean, stupidest idea in history. I would say there is a bit more stupid ideas, but moving it to the modifiers, well, you could argue the other way around, right? Like having the modifiers in a non-modifier UI, it's also stupid, right? If you open Blender 4.5 and you make a video edit, then how on earth would you know that the modifiers were in a tab and they look weird. How do you sort these modifiers even, right? You had arrows here. What is this? Which year is it? As opposed to an object where you have this UI everywhere in Blender and it's consistent, right? You have a mesh, you have an array, you have another node, and you can just drag them around. This is a modifier, right? The concept of a modifier, data that you can change with, you can affect some other data, in this case a strip or an object, without modifying the underlying data in a destructive way. I don't see why not. What makes this layout that users are familiar with and they know worse than what we had? Because actually it doesn't imply people use the sequencer 24/7. No, it doesn't. Actually, the other way around. If you would imply that people use this all the time, then you would just leave it here in the sidebar because it didn't because it was unique to them and they don't care. Actually, this makes it easier for everyone else to find where the modifiers are. And also modifier stack, because now we support the compositor modifier stack. This is likely going to become very tall, and in the sequencers usually you don't have lots of channels visible at once. You have the bigger preview, and that would mean that if you have modifiers here, then you will need to have this tall modifier stack and then go back to small, or just scroll a lot, and it's just not very didn't make any sense. So depends who you ask. Here, somebody in the chat, Alma Luar, says, I love the new modifier. Cool, that's nice. It looks more clean now, says Seda359. So not everybody agrees, and that's totally fine, but in terms of Blender itself, it makes more sense to have modifiers looking the same all across the board because it's easier. Hola says, Flowgun, I think developers need to give more love to raw modeling tools and retopo tools. Polybuild tool still feels unfinished. I agree. We have no vanilla ways to save selections. Face edge selection gets messed up with just current vertex groups saving. Oh, we have face sets, don't we? No, no, they were they removed or not? Maybe. It's been a while since no, of course, yeah, no, they have been removed, and that's why there was a change in the UI recently. But we need attribute saving, and there is the wasn't there an add-on, the selection sets add-on, or that's for the selection set? No, that is save selection. No, there was one for pose library selection sets. I'm mixing up. Inability to tweak an area without losing the current selection. Basically, you either use your current selection or you lose it. Okay, this is related to the other. Face edge selection saving. Lots of love is required in these areas, and I think that's what would make people start with Blender over 3ds Max, that's still seen as a more robust modeler. I mean, Polybuild, I agree. The other one, like saving selections, that sounds like a low-hanging fruit. Like Polybuild requires thinking. Save selections. There must be add-ons out there that do it. And that means that if people can make add-ons for it, then they can also make the built-in version for it. So this might be a good candidate for a community contribution, like a good first issue. Make a right-click select post. If there is any already, please search first in case there is one already. But make a proposal, an actual proposal. Okay, what is the name? Where is it? In which section is it? I would assume it's somewhere here, like in the data, the mesh data, something that says selections, and it looks like a UI list where you can have the list of your names and then select and deselect? No, makes sense. Bone selections, yeah, bones have selection set. That's something I mix them up. If you have a armature with a bunch of, there you go. This is selection set. This is the same thing. Same thing. Basically, yes. So you select and then you select. And this can be assigned or removed to the selection set. Yeah, no, this used to be an add-on and it was moved to. Thanks for the heads up. Okay, that's it. We're good. I hope you had a good time. And this episode was a bit shorter than usual, which is a good thing, but we get to hang out a bit more. How's everyone in the chat doing? Will the modifier sequencer maybe work like node system in the future? Well, yeah, it does already with the compositor in the compositor itself. Or you mean the actual editing of videos in the node as a node? No, I think that's a bit too far-fetched. But effects, for sure. Transitions, for sure. I think it makes sense. It's actually way more flexible. The strip info node in 5.1 already makes that possible. It makes a big difference. We need assets. We need to ship Blender with some built-in assets. And I don't know how gizmos would work, actually, because to make a transition, you just want, or a fade out, fade in, fade out, you just want to get the strip and just like drag the corners just to fade out. You don't want to add a compositor setup, strip info node, do some math, calculate the opacity. You just want something that just drag and drop, right? Yeah, that's it. Anyways, thanks everyone for staying until the end. I hope you had fun. I did. And I will see you again in 2 weeks, actually, when it's it. It's at some point. I think I need to take some holidays at some point in this year. So when is that? Is that gonna be next week? Because next time already will be the 9th of December. I haven't planned holidays yet, so I'm not sure if I'm probably gonna be around. But if I'm not, I'm gonna let you know. Otherwise, I will see you again in 2 weeks time, because actually the week after is my birthday, in the 15th of December. How old am I gonna be? Try to guess in the comments below, and that's the way I know that you watched it until the end. Thanks everyone. I hope you had fun. I did. So see you again next episode, same place, same time, for another Blender Today live. Thank you. Not 35, not 75. Keep it going. Bye. Thank you.